In a U-turn, Joe Biden's administration informed it will support a proposal submitted to the World Trade Organization to suspend intellectual property rights on vaccines against COVID-19. Britain and France sent two of their Navy and coastal patrol ships to waters near the channel of the UK island of Jersey, amid tensions between the two neighbours countries over the post-Brexit fishing rights. Violent repression by state security forces against anti-government demonstrators in Colombia continues, with at least 37 people killed. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. The United States will longer block a vaccine patents waiver demanded by India and South Africa at the World Trade Organization, the White House announced on Thursday. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is due to attend an European Union summit this weekend in which the waiver will be discussed. The head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has said the bloc is ready to discuss a US-backed proposal for a waiver of the patents for COVID-19 vaccines. However, pharmaceutical companies are urging President Biden to reject a proposal before the World Trade Organization to temporarily waive patent rights to widen access to COVID-19 medical products to mostly low-income countries. Drug makers argue that, contrary to assertions, intellectual property is not a barrier to ensuring that vaccines become available on a global basis. Also, a U.S. government report prepared in the Donald Trump administration reveals that Washington pressured Brazil to scrap buying Sputnik V, an anti-COVID-19 vaccine developed by Russia, was corroborated on Thursday.
That process will take a series of months and requires a unanimous point of view to move forward. So what the consideration now is the U.S. position. Our objective overall, as we look at this decision, is how can we provide as much supply in the most cost-effective way to the global community? And clearly there are steps we've announced, we're in the process of taking. Providing 60 million doses to the global community once we have that available that are AstraZeneca doses. Earlier this week, Pfizer announced they'll also be sending doses or manufacturing doses for the global community. And we're going to continue to work with our partners. I expect we'll have more now that the WTO meetings are underway. We'll have more to say very soon on this.
Pfizer and BioNTech announced on Thursday that are donated vaccine doses to vaccinate athletes for this summer's Tokyo Olympics. According to a joint statement, the pharmaceutical consortiums said they will donate doses of the companies to help vaccinate athletes and their delegations who are taking part in the Olympics and Paralympic Games. Delivery is expected to begin later this month. Thomas Bach, the president of the Olympic Committee, said that this donation of the vaccine is another tool in the toolbox of measures to help make the Olympic and Paralympic Games Tokyo 2020 safe and secure for all participants, and to show solidarity with the Japanese host. In Pakistan, people have been queuing to get vaccinated as coronavirus cases surge. According to information provided by the Health Ministry, the country has purchased 13 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines from 3 Chinese companies, Sinopharm, CanSino Bio, and Sinovac, and also expects to receive them in the next 2 months. Another 2.4 million shots are also to be provided through the global COVAX program to help fulfill the objective of vaccinating 70 million people by the end of the year. 2.1 million people have been vaccinated in the country so far, the lowest rate in South Asia.
It really seems to me that there is more awareness among the people whose age ranges from 40 to 49 years. Pakistanis are arriving for vaccination as soon as they are becoming aware. There is one factor, as people have created mass propaganda that this vaccination is harmful. Praise be to God, there is no such thing. There is much fear among the people after seeing the situation in India through the media. We are not aware of it if it is not in the media. People are being more aware through the media what situation is going on. More people are dying now. More people are becoming infected. That's why more people are arriving to be vaccinated.
The World Health Organization announced on Wednesday it will set up a global data hub in Berlin to analyze information on emerging pandemic threats, filling the gaps exposed by COVID-19.
Modern technologies give us unprecedented tools for collecting, analyzing, and disseminating data in real time around the world. That's what the WHO Hub for Pandemic and Epidemic Intelligence aims to do. Hosted in Berlin, the WHO Hub will be a global center that works with partners around the world to lead innovations in pandemic and epidemic intelligence, data, surveillance, and analytics. The WHO Hub will be part of the WHO Health Emergencies Program, and we expect it to play a vital role in the global health security ecosystem.
The director of the Pan American Health Organization has warned that hospitals in the region are dangerously full, while raising the alarm about the rise in COVID-19 hospitalizations and fatalities of young adults.
40% of all global COVID deaths reported last week took place right here in our region. Today, more Latin American countries than ever before are reporting more than 1,000 COVID cases a day. And our hospitals are fuller than ever. Over the last few months, hospitalization rates among those under 39 years increased by more than 70% in Chile. In Brazil, the highest jumps in hospitalizations have been among people in their 40s. In some areas of the United States, more people in their 20s are now being hospitalized for COVID-19 than people in their 70s.
And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. On Thursday, Britain and France sent two of their Navy and coastal patrol ships to waters near the channel of the UK island of Jersey, amid tensions between the two neighbours over the post-Brexit fishing rights. The country's posture was sparked by a protest of around 50-70 French fishing boats, which gathered outside the port on Thursday morning, raising fears of a blockade, threatening food and energy supplies. At the center of the dispute is post-Brexit arrangements for the shared waters in the 13-mile stretch between France and Jersey. New licenses were issued on Friday, the last day of a 4-month grace period after Brexit, which ended the 200-year-old Granville Bay Treaty on shared fishing rights. According to the head of Jersey Fishermen's Association, Don Thompson, the response from France is considered pretty close as an act of war.
We come today because we have always fished in the waters there. We have always fished here, and then overnight they take away all our fishing rights. These are agreements we have had for a very long time. We wanted more of an agreement to work together, as we have always worked. They come and they deliver all their goods, so they can sell all their goods. And we come and fish in the waters there, so everyone benefits.
This Thursday, polling stations opened in the United Kingdom for the regional elections, since the first one since the beginning of the pandemic, and a test for the unity of the country. Also known as Super Thursday due to the amount of elections to be held on the same day, polling stations opened early in the morning and will close at 10 p.m. local time, but results won't be reported until the following day or until Monday. Up to 48 million people are eligible to vote across Britain, as this moment represents the greatest test for the electorate since the 2019 general election. Elections for the Scottish and Welsh Parliament, 143 councils and 13 mayors in England, including London, are happening. According to a latest polling made by Sky News, it is expected the Scottish National Party to achieve a narrow parliamentary majority in the vote. On Wednesday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met with his Palestinian counterpart Riyad al-Maliki in Moscow and called for a de-escalation in Israeli-occupied East Jerusalem, where Palestinians have suffered increasing attacks in the recent weeks. The Russian foreign minister supported the idea of Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas on gathering an international conference on Palestinian-Israeli settlement. Lavrov said Russia is working on intensifying the work of a Middle East quartet, which will bring together Russia, the United States, the European Union, and the United Nations on Palestinian-Israeli settlement, and noted that the format was revived after Joe Biden assumed the U.S. presidency. He explained that in order to activate this platform, efforts are ongoing with other members of the quartet to consider the possibility of organizing a meeting at the level of foreign ministers. Meanwhile, the Palestinian foreign minister supported the idea of a quarter ministerial meeting, saying only the quarter can activate the political process, and praised Russia's role. However, he stressed that one country alone cannot be the only mediator on the Palestinian-Israeli settlement issue. In Iraq, suspected rebels of the extremist Islamic State attacked an oil field near the northern city of Kirkuk on Wednesday, leaving 2 security officers dead and blowing up 2 oil wells, a provincial security source stated on Wednesday. A report by press office of Iraq's Ministry of Oil stated that the ISIS rebels attacked the Bay Hassan oil field, around 250 kilometers north of the capital, Baghdad. The first fire was brought under control in a record time, but firefighters were still active at the second well several hours after the attacks, the ministry added. ISIS maintains the ability to perpetrate hit-and-run attacks, operating mainly at night and often exploiting the discord between Baghdad and Erbil, the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan. On Wednesday, protesters took to the streets of Dawei in southern Myanmar as part of the mobilizations organized against the ruling military junta. The country has been in chaos since the military takeover in February, with major protests and violent backlash from security forces. According to local sources, over 700 people have been killed in the deadly clashes, although the military junta has reported a far lower death toll, which it blames on rioters. A group of ousted lawmakers who call themselves the National Unity Government, which is working underground to oppose the junta, announced their Armed People's Defense Force to stop the use of violence against the people. It is intended as a precursor to a federal union army, the group said in a statement, referring to a long-touted idea of bringing together Myanmar's myriad rebel army groups to defeat the military's well-trained soldiers. In Nigeria, 29 abducted college students were freed this Wednesday, 2 months after heavily armed gunmen kidnapped in the north of the country. The abduction of the students from a college of forestry mechanization in Kaduna State in March was one of a series of mass kidnappings to hit schools and universities in Nigeria since the last year. 10 of the 39 students initially kidnapped were found by security forces in the weeks following the attack, but the whereabouts of the remaining 29 had been uncertain. President Muhammad Buhari welcomed the students' release and also called for kidnappers to free other abducted victims. Heavily armed criminal gangs have become an increasing security threat in northwest and central Nigeria, pillaging villages, raiding cattle, and kidnapping for ransom. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. From the south, Colombia's National Strike Committee informed that over 100 people were injured and 30 protesters went missing during the demonstrations that have been taking place since last week in Pereira City. Human rights defenders denounced that the police have been fired at the demonstrators from motorcycles and vehicles with tinted windows. One victim is Lucas Villa, a young student who was shot to death on Wednesday night during a peaceful demonstration. 2 other protesters were also hit by gunfire. The committee is collecting all complaints from victims of police brutality to identify the exact number of deaths and injuries. But this process is limited because health workers have orders not to provide information to human rights organizations, according to representatives of the National Strike Committee. Social movements are requesting international human rights organizations to come to Pereira to witness the escalation of state terrorism is taking place in their territory. While there is still no official summary of human rights violations, Pereira Mayor Carlos Maya assured that about 50 people were injured on Wednesday night. And Colombians took to the streets for the 9th day this Wednesday with massive mobilizations called by the National Strike Committee in defiance of a violent crackdown by security forces. At least 37 people have been killed in the repression so far, according to local NGO Temblores. Early Wednesday morning, Colombian police and army units shot live ammunition against demonstrators in several Colombian cities, as widely reported on social media accounts. The central Bolivar square of the capital, Bogotá, saw harsh repression. According to the National Strike Committee, in the last 7 days, almost 1,500 cases of police violence were reported. 22 people sustained eye injuries as a result of the deliberate police practice of shooting at demonstrators' face. Over 800 people have been arrested and 10 cases of sexual abuse by security forces have been confirmed, the NGO Temblores reported. Colombia's human rights ombudsman has also confirmed that the whereabouts of 89 people are still unknown. International organizations as well as Colombians around the world have mobilized to condemn the deadly situation in Colombia as anti-government protesters continue to face violent repression by state security forces. This Wednesday, Colombian residents in the British capital, London, rallied to demand that President Iván Duque put a stop to the violence. Similar scenes were also seen in the German capital, Berlin, as well as in New York in the United States. Colombian President Iván Duque has called for a dialogue to address nationwide protests, claiming he will create a space to listen to citizens, despite his responsibility in the widespread violent crackdown on anti-government protesters over the past week. The move can be seen as a bid to the president to avoid further international condemnation on the deadly repression, which has seen the United Nations, the European Union, and even the United States, as well as human rights organizations, hit out at state security forces for their excessive use of force. President Duque defended the security forces and said they are the main victims of the violence, despite the widespread evidence of the contrary. He also claimed that the acts of vandalism that have been taking place during the anti-government protests were financed and articulated by drug trafficking mafias. The allegations are part of the repetitive claims by his government, which has failed to tackle the escalating violence in the country, instead laying blame on armed gangs, including dissidents of the disbanded leftist FARC guerrillas and members of another rebel group, the ELN, and drug traffickers. This, despite the revelations of his government's support for and links to illegal armed groups and paramilitaries. In Uruguay, the dock workers' union announced a 24-hour strike this Wednesday due to its disagreement with the concession granted by the government to an operator located in the port of Montevideo, the Belgian company Cato & Nady. The president of the union, Marcelo Brinjon, affirmed that the stoppage comes in opposition to the fact that container ships are to be redirected to the specialized terminal operated by the Belgian firm, resulting in a monopoly of the port. The dock workers' union stressed that the move will threaten 700 jobs linked to the port due to reduced operations. Likewise, another company operating at the port, Montecon, assured that the free competition is not being respected and threatened to sue the state. In Chile, campaigns have resumed for the upcoming May 15th to 16th elections to choose municipal mayors, councillors, regional governors, and for the first time, the members of the Constitutional Convention, a body that will draft the country's new constitution. Let's take a look at how the election campaign resumed with our correspondent, Paola Dragnik.
These are the Chilean ultra-right parties that campaign against changing Pinochet's constitution. But they had no other option but to run constituent candidates after the triumph of the yes vote in the referendum on the rewriting of the constitution. Today, they are relaunching their campaigns.
I believe that in the Constitutional Convention we need people who have clear values and principles, but at the same time people who are capable of reaching agreements, because we are going to need agreements of 2/3 in that convention.
Among them are figures such as Constanza Huber, a lawyer at the Liberty and Development Institute who wants to be a part of the body that seeks to do away with Pinochet's constitution in order to protect unrestricted economic activity. Now, what we are going to do is to transmit motivation, not only for the candidacy, but also motivation as to why the Constitution is important, and why it is important to have people who are prepared, and people who courageously defend what we want. Also relaunching their campaigns, among thousands of others, are those who seek to regulate economic activity with principles that, for example, constitutionally protect water, education, communication, and old age pensions. They do not have large corporate campaigns contributions. They come from the social activities world. By raising our voices, we intend to represent many realities, organizations, and social movements, so that this constitution has an environmental, feminist, and participatory perspective.
My commitment is to the constitutional enshrinement of the right to communication, so that at least 1/3 of the radio spectrum is managed by community or alternative media.
The young people who were protagonists in the 2019 uprising are joined by leaders who have been denouncing the injustices of the neoliberal model for decades.
We have few resources. We do not have visibility in the open television media, and therefore it is an asymmetrical, unequal scenario, but we are depending on the citizenship, on the people of Chile, who were the ones who rose up, not to make a mistake. There is no longer any justification to vote for the lesser evil, as we have been told for the past 30 years.
For the first time, indigenous people will have reserved seats. Although the electoral inequality does not change, Aliwen Antileo has been fighting for decades. Here he speaks in the documentary Apaga en Vámonos, Switch Off, almost 20 years ago.
What we have in Chile are political classes that are servile and subordinate to those big economies, and that economic model is the one that is plundering our natural resources.
Here, Aliwen campaigning today. On television, he has had no more than 1 second's coverage.
I have participated in dozens of mobilizations, land recoveries, which have earned me imprisonment, and this experience means that I know the demands of my people.
Regarding the candidates for the Constitutional Convention alone, there are thousands of names that today are seeking a seat in this unequal electoral campaign that ends on May 13th.
Italo Retamal y Paola Dragnik, teleSUR, Chile.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For telesur English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.